Hi, Marianne here, and today I'd like to delve a little more deeply into the essential component of the awakening process, and that is the process of regaining self-mastery. And in particular, I'm going to talk about emotional and thought self-mastery. All right, let's dive right in. Emotions are one of the, if not the most misunderstood and underestimated aspects of the mind-body complex. And by misunderstood, I mean we, up until now, really haven't understood the true purpose and function of our emotions. To a point, yes. But thanks to modern psychology, which has its merits, but there's a lot of not so great things about it. Things that do not, by design, encourage consciousness progression and our progress on the awakening journey. But emotions have been, in psychology, it's all about why am I feeling this? What is this doing, to me? Where did this emotion come from? But all in the context of me in 3D reality, as opposed to looking at emotions from a zoomed out perspective, meaning from the perspective of how they can be used as the tools they were intended to progress our progress. Okay, and I'm going to begin by talking about love. Love, love, love. Love has been, and the word love has been so distorted and misused and misunderstood. And love in the collective has been reduced, not knocking emotions, but has been reduced to an emotion. And that's not really what love is. I want to talk about what love really means. And again, it's why the reason I just spoke of is why I don't use that word very often. I use it with care. But real love is a state of being and state of understanding, a higher order understanding. And what is it an understanding of? It's an understanding of how this world and this reality really works and what we really are and what we're really here to do. And as I spoke of in the last video, an understanding of consciousness. Love is, by my understanding and from my perspective, love is the complete and utter acceptance of the object of that love, whether it be another person or an animal or any other life form, or whatever it is. It's the unfettered understanding of what that object or person or animal really is from the zoomed out higher perspective, and an understanding of the true purpose of that object and your encounter with it, which is to give you an opportunity to progress your consciousness if you are on that journey. There is not anything in this reality that is not intended, that cannot be used, and I don't mean taken advantage of, but I mean utilized as a means of advancing your progress on your awakening journey, your self-mastery process. And that's the bottom line. That's why we were given the gift of creating in the physical, creating our physical forms, because all these different amazing things that consciousness brings us in the physical that we encounter are tools and mechanisms for advancing consciousness progression. So, back to love. When you understand that, when you really embody that, then how can you not love everything and everyone? And I know that's a huge leap. It's one of the toughest leaps to make in this process, especially when it comes to loving those beings and races that have taken it upon themselves to decide if and how quickly we'll progress. Those who have imposed the various programs and conditioning and social engineering and have manipulated our energetic and physical genetics, those are the toughest. And also in the 3D world, loving those entities who are, and beings who are completely asleep, who challenge us in aggressive ways, who are just downright mean or nasty people. You say, you know, you ask yourself, how am I supposed to love that person? Well, when you truly get at the energetic level, and it's embodied in your mind-body complex, then you cannot help but love, fully accept and understand, because you understand, you can fully accept them. And then what's to get over or what's to forgive? Now, in extreme cases, if you're being confronted in ways that are personally threatening to your body and self, then you can choose to remove yourself from that person. You can disconnect from any attachment that you've had with them. And I know that's not always easy, because sometimes these people are family members. Yes. And I know many of you have and are experiencing that. I have personally. And it is an incredibly difficult process to go through. But I'll get more. I'm going to be talking a lot about relationships in upcoming videos. So for now, let's stick to love and learning how to become a master of your emotions and thoughts. But really coming to understand what real love is: complete acceptance of the other, because you truly are coming to understand what other really is and what other represents, and the opportunity that other gives you to keep moving forward on your journey. And let's talk a little bit more about emotions in general. Oh, insofar as love, yes, emotions can be an outgrowth of that true and utter love. You might experience great joy or even sadness in your acceptance, complete acceptance of other. But love is not an emotion in itself. So really start embodying that if you haven't already. Really take that in. Really, really absorb that and start taking that out into the world. As you encounter different experiences throughout the course of the day, you have various conversations and various interchanges with other people, whether it's in the workplace or in your home or on the phone or on the computer. Keep that in the back of your mind. Hold that knowledge, and then just listen and let the experience unfold with that intellectual, at least for now, intellectual understanding of what love really is. Okay, now that's a real handy little exercise. Now, moving on to emotions in general. So, what does it really mean to master and responsibly administer your emotions? First of all, administration and management, let's clear that up right now, is not about suppression of emotions. In fact, quite the opposite. We are, until we move to a different level or a different place in our journey, we are meant to experience emotions, not suppress them. And this reality as it is, society, again, the races and beings that are pretty much pulling the strings at this point, they push both sides of the coin. They push for repression and suppression of emotions, and on the other hand, they push people to just blurt it all, let it all out at whatever price, no matter what's going on. It's all about, I need to express, I need to vomit my emotions on whoever is around me, because that's what I need to do. Well, both extremes are incredibly consciousness regressive means of dealing with emotions. Dealing with emotions and becoming master of them means first and foremost to feel them so that they are released from the mind-body complex, but to do it in a responsible, healthy way. And when you begin this process, and some of you have probably been doing this for a while, but some of you are just beginning, you need to feel your emotions and release them. But you need to do it in such a way, and there are means of doing this, and I help people with this when I work with them, so that they are contained. You do it in a safe place. You do it using energetic means of confining, but fully releasing without any intention of doing any harm to whomever you believe may be responsible, although it's up to you to choose how you respond. But again, that's another video. But finding a healthy means of releasing them, cleanse them out, let them flow through and out. And this is, in the beginning in particular, can be a very painful process. But the way you feel once you get to the other side of it is so worth the process. Even though you may go for weeks, maybe even months, if you're doing this work on a daily basis, which I trust you are. And if you aren't, I can help you with that too. But regular cleansing and clearing of emotions, first and foremost, that you need to make a routine out of that. whether it's, and I recommend the end of the day taking a few minutes, because more often than not, we are not, because we can't. We're in a work situation or other situation where it's just inappropriate to express our emotions. But since so many people aren't releasing them, and certainly not in a healthy way, what ends up happening is those suppressed emotions cause us to overreact and over-respond to situations that would normally not be emotionally volatile for us. It spills over, it gets messy. And for example, maybe your partner, y'all are talking about going out to eat dinner, and you express that you want Chinese. She says that she would prefer to eat Indian, and you basically explode on her or him, and the other person is just totally taken aback, and deeply upset, or you trigger their suppressed anger, and you end up getting into some totally unnecessary row between the two of you without either of you really understanding why or where it came from. And you do this over enough time, I mean, this destroys relationships. So it's critically important that you take time at the end of every day, or if you have a day off, do it first thing in the morning, because you also need to be clearing any energies and so forth that get triggered in your dream state. But a daily habit of cleansing, just like brushing your teeth, showering, washing your hair, every day, cleanse your emotions. And what do I mean by administering them? I made reference to this just a little bit earlier in the conversation when I talked about blurting them out. And I'm talking about even so-called positive emotions like joy or excitement. We need to administer those as well, because, and we do so by tuning into the situation and the others around us. And oftentimes, depending upon where they are in their journey, and they may not be on a conscious awakening journey at all, we need to respect that and honor that. And when you release even, excuse me, positive emotions into an environment where you're unaware, you have not tuned into the energies around you, you can trigger all sorts of sometimes verbally violent responses or physically violent responses, because you have to learn to tune into the energies of those around you. That's being responsible. Early on in this process, the process of awakening, we all tend to think, we're told, some of these particularly New Age ideologies tell us that, oh, we can, if we love, and not the true meaning of love, if we love others enough and just keep putting that out there, then we're going to help them and change them. And that is and can be one of the most dangerous behaviors that you can do as a novice on this journey, to assume that your feelings are necessarily your happy or excited feelings of misunderstood love are what that other person needs in order to be better, to be happier, to help them. And like I said, it can really backfire on you in all sorts of unpleasant ways. So a key part of learning to master your emotions is to learn to start sensing into what's around you. And again, I know this sounds like suppression, but it is not, because I'm telling you, hand in hand with tuning into and wisely administering your emotionals and your emotions and your emotional response, I'm also telling you that that's why at the end of the day or in the morning, preferably end of day, to clear you before you go to bed, and if you have time in the morning too, but cleanse your emotions, cleanse them out of your energetic centers and throughout the mind-body complex, release them in hand with knowing that it is not appropriate in most situations throughout your 3D day to express them. Taking a neutral, choosing a neutral, emotionally neutral response in most, pardon me, day-to-day activities is the approach that's most prudent to take. And then when you are in the privacy of your own home, then you can safely release and clear your emotions for each day. Okay? Now, let's talk a little bit about thought mastery. In some ways, it's even more difficult to become a master of your own thoughts than to become a master and administrator of your own emotions. But in other ways, it's a little easier. And I'll tell you why. Because there are multiple ways that you can, and techniques for mastering thoughts. And one of the most basic and most effective is to, instead of using your meditative time, if you meditate, if you don't meditate, then start making time to do some of these other techniques. But using that time to not try to shut out thoughts, that never works. It doesn't work to try and shut them down, but rather to approach the thought process, and in this time you've set aside for yourself, become purely an observer of them and just start watching them float by, watching them float by without latching on to any one of them or following it. That's a good little exercise to get you detached from thoughts and brain all the time, to just watch them and practice not letting your mind grab on to any of them. Now, there's another exercise that you can do that's also quite beneficial. As you watch your thoughts go by, anyone that you latch on to, let yourself do, let yourself go, let yourself follow through with that chain of thought and see where you end up. And that means checking in with how that thought is making you feel, and find how, and make the connection between this thought, this kind of thought, and what it does to you in terms of senses and feeling. And does it lead to other, if it is a good thought, a consciousness progressive thought, what other consciousness progressive thoughts does it lead to? Or are you suddenly interrupted by a consciousness regressive thought? And if the thought that you latch onto and start following is a consciousness regressive thought that elicits negative emotions, just let it come, let it flow, and see what other consciousness regressive thoughts come to the surface. And I would recommend doing both of the two exercises that I just described, you only have to do them each for about 10 or 15 minutes. And when you're finished with each exercise, make notes so you can look at it and really take in what you saw, what you felt, and start getting to the root of why. And understanding, tracking these back to a distorted belief, a concept, an ideology, and to see where that takes you. Explore. We have to explore and use our tools to explore ourselves, to come to really know ourselves. And we can't really make much progress on our awakening journey until we really do understand ourselves and all the levels of ourselves. And we certainly are not going to be able to grasp the higher understanding of core self until we get a really good handle on mind-body complex, then human template, and how they're interconnected and how they work together and how they work. Then we can begin to really understand how they truly function in conjunction with with core self. Know thyself. And we are so caught up by conditioning to believe that taking action is always physical. Well, I'm here to tell you too that when all of your actions are physical, that means you're ignoring the inner you, and you're keeping yourself from the core self, your whole self you, and a higher understanding of that, and therefore keeping yourself from advancing your progress on this journey to make it to the next level of understanding. Get back into the fourth density understandings and onto the fifth density understandings and consciousness and creational and energetic capacities. So mastering your thoughts and emotions. Let's talk a little bit more about thoughts before I move on. But administering your thoughts, once you get a good handle on the kind of thoughts that you tend to latch onto and can trace those back to various ideologies and concepts or dogmas and belief systems, then you can start unraveling those concepts and ideologies and belief systems and saying, is that really what I believe? Is that really? Do I know this? Or has it's just something else that's been served up to me so many times over the course of millennia, and then in this lifetime, that I've just taken it as my own? What do I, inner me, true self, core self, really know? What do I know? Either through inner knowing, some people call it intuition, higher order knowledge, direct knowing, whatever you want to call it. What do I really know or not know for myself, from within me? And that's sort of the beginning of the process of letting go of these distortions, these beliefs and ideas and all that are just either completely false, or they were presented in such a way to have, they got some truth here and some truth here, and sandwiched in the middle is a bunch of BS. But this is all part of the process of self-mastery. And it's exacting work. And it's not exacting work. It's not scientific, but in a way it is, because you're observing to the best of your ability, impartially, outside yourself, what's going on with yourself. So in that sense, I guess it is sort of a scientific exploratory process. But whatever you call it, I recommend that you find ways for doing it on a regular basis, because there are so many of us that are so buried, so suppressed emotionally, that we're wearing almost like an armor where some of us don't even really feel anymore. And then there's others of us who seem to feel everything beneath 50 different masks that we started wearing when we were very young. When we first, when we come into this world, we are ourselves, whatever that means, with all, the genetic inheritance, whether tampered with or not, and the particular makeup of our unique template and mind-body complex. And we are ourselves, even though not all of it unfolds until later. Some of the genetics don't start unfolding until later, and that's based on various triggers that happen in our lifetime. But I'll get more into that in other videos. But we begin wearing masks because we start being told through various experiences, situations, relationships, that our true little selves aren't right, aren't good enough, aren't appropriate to whatever belief system or ideology the other, whether it's a parent or caretaker, school teacher, if you go to church, a minister or whatever is telling us, then we start wearing masks so that we fit in, because we're told we're supposed to fit in society. That being different and being unique and being ourselves and accepting ourselves is unacceptable. So for some of you, getting started in the emotional release process can be really rough. And that's one of the things I help people with. Getting started in that and being there with you through some of that, so that you're not alone in it and you have someone there who's been through it and has a number of mechanisms for helping you get through it. So these are critical. We need to deal with our emotions in order to be able to become master of them. And again, proper administration of emotions means learning how also to tune in to the energies around us, to sense into, and that's part of the work too that I can help you with, to sense into who and what's around you, so that you can determine if it is a good idea or not to express what you're feeling. And then if you had certain particularly intense feelings that were inappropriate, whether they're good, positive or negative, you need to go home and deal with expressing them, even positive ones, in a way that is respectful of the energy around you, that it's contained within your energetic sphere of influence. Okay. Thoughts, again, mainly help us. The best way to start mastering those is to start watching them. Find a quiet, still place and start paying attention to the ones that draw us and working backwards from there. Making the notes of the ones that draw us in, seeing where those thoughts lead us, and connecting them back to belief systems. Key part of that. Okay, I think that is good for today. If you're finding this information helpful, I hope you'll subscribe. Visit my website, restoration-activation.com. excuse me, restoration-activation-project.com, and you'll find some more information there. In the meantime, I look forward to joining you again. I hope you'll share this with your fellow travelers, those who are on this conscious journey of awakening. And I look forward to being with you next time. Until then, happy trails.